Hello?
Hello, this is Joe Biden, the late Joe Biden. I was supposed to have called in a few minutes ago. I got tied up on another show. Is it still appropriate to talk to Julio?
Yes, Mr. Biden. I'm Julio. What an honor, and don't you worry. I was waiting your
Julio.
telephone call. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well. I'm sorry to be late. To be late in the call. I apologize. I couldn't get off another radio talk show.
Don't you worry, Mr. Biden. Now we are broadcasting for different countries, originating from Colombia, country that you have been visiting. Yeah, and also our audience in Florida.
I'm very proud. You're given the highest award a non-Colombian can get. It's a magnificent country, thank God. Anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Biden. I think you're happy today. Yesterday was a good day for Democrats.
Yes, it was. It was a great day. I campaigned in all those states, and we had a great day. And I think it is people want to know about exactly, what the Democrats are going to do to deal with this administration that has done everything from belittle people who are Latino or African American or Asian, and also, but even more importantly, they want to know what they're going to do about everything from providing health care to job opportunities, education, etc. Anyway, I think that's what you saw yesterday, from Virginia to Pennsylvania to just across the country.
Mr. Biden, you have a very, very high possibility to be the next president of the United States. Why you don't talk to the voto Latino, to our people? What is going to change if you got you can win the election? What's going to change?
A lot's going to change. First of all, America is who we are because of immigration, because of diversity, because 24 out of every 100 students in kindergarten through high school are Latino. 21 out of 100. The idea that we're not going to invest in this community. So first and foremost, we're going to change our immigration policy, particularly as it relates to Latinos. Look, we're going to make sure that we, in fact, make sure immediately that the kids who are the so-called dreamers are able to be treated immediately as American citizens. We're going to go back at what Barack and I tried to make sure we have a significant effort to have immigration reform to provide access and a path to citizenship for 11 million people, maybe even more people. And look, everybody, you have the hard right talking about how this is a drag on the economy. Wrong. The reason why our Social Security system is in fact still functioning is because we have significant input from Hispanics and Latinos who are paying into the system. We also have to change our foreign policy. I mean, here we are at a time when I argued in our administration, the president put me in charge of the hemisphere, that we had an opportunity. We had an opportunity to make sure that from all the way from northern Canada down the tip of Argentina, that we have a hemisphere that is democratic, middle class, and free. And what are we doing? This administration has walked away from that. We have to invest in what we want to see happen. The idea, look at the problem Colombia is facing now in terms of people fleeing Venezuela, the impact it's having, the elections, what's going on in Bolivia, the cries about that are going on throughout the region about corruption. This is a hemisphere that should be the leading the world in the 21st century. And there's so many possibilities.
Vice President, speaking of the hemisphere, you were a strong supporter of the Colombian peace process, and with cocaine production breaking records and social leaders being killed and some former FARC leaders returning to arms, do you think the peace process has failed in our country?
I'm sorry, would you say the beginning of that question again? I'm in an automobile, unfortunately, and I lost part of what you said at the beginning.
Yes, Vice President. While you were with President Obama, you were a strong supporter of the peace process in Colombia. And now we're seeing this year and the last year cocaine production breaking new records as we never seen before, social leaders being killed in our country. Some former FARC leaders just returned to arms. With this scenario, do you think the peace process has failed?
No, it sure has in the days of production, and we have, as I understand it, primarily walked away from the kind of commitment we had made overall to the Colombian government in terms of the process. And but in fact, if you the idea that you have the opposition and the taking over the drug trade, in effect, is a gigantic and worrisome problem.
Vice President,
engaged in. Yes.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your idea.
Anyway, we should be much more engaged in terms of helping the Colombian government deal with this problem, as well as working through the international community to try to put more pressure on how it's not working.
Vice President, the Trump administration has been very constant in applying economic sanctions towards the Maduro regime in Venezuela. In a Biden administration, will the economic sanctions continue, or will there be a tougher approach, perhaps a military intervention?
What you would see in the Biden administration is, first of all, you would see the Biden administration trying to unite the region in terms of a common policy relative to Venezuela. The fact is that we need to help in dealing with what is a human rights problem right now, and the need for some intervention and providing help for, including temporary protective status for Venezuelans who are fleeing, making sure the burden doesn't all fall on Colombia. Colombia is taking the burden of all these folks who are fleeing into Colombia, and it's a gigantic impact on your economy. We should be organizing like we tried to do when there was a problem in Europe, for God's sake. We should be organizing the effort to provide for significant relief for the neighboring countries for the burden that they is being imposed on them. The United States has a responsibility to be part of that, and a financial responsibility to do that.
Vice President, let's go back to the campaign. The Democratic Party has always been known for being the party of the working class, and the Republican Party for being the party of the rich and the rich businesses. But in 2016, in the previous election, Donald Trump won Ohio, won Pennsylvania. Those are Democratic Party constituencies, but he still won them. Do you think that your party is still the party of the working class?
I can tell you I am. And each of those polling, if you could look at Pennsylvania, you look at Ohio, you look at these working class areas where I come from, I beat Trump badly in those areas. I beat him because I have where I came from. The Democratic Party is built to protect working class and middle class people, and we have to start talking to that again. That's where I come from. That's been the basis of my support for my whole career. And we can and we will win that back as long as we level with those people and tell them exactly what we're going to do and why we understand their problem. My dad used to have an expression. He'd say, Joe, I don't expect the government to solve my problem, but I sure as devil expect them to understand it. A lot of people in the middle class and working class are in trouble. They're in trouble. The middle class is shrinking in America, and we have to begin to talk to it. They have to restore a sense of dignity. And you can't have much dignity if you can't provide health care for your child or an education for your child, or you live in an area where it's being polluted by oil companies and your water you can't drink. These are what we call here kitchen table issues. What are people discussing at their kitchen table this morning in the neighborhoods and the kind of household I grew up in? I grew up in a household that was small, a little 3-bedroom house, which was fine, nice area, with 4 siblings, my mom, dad, and a grandpa living with us. And so I understand what ordinary people are fighting, and they just want a chance, and they're not getting it now. And that's why I think I'm doing as well as I am in the early polling data in those states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, etc.
Vice President, some people think that you are following the same Obama's presidential plan. Is that true? What makes you different?
I'm sorry, I lost you again. Some people think the Obama, I beg your pardon?
Yes, that you are following the same Obama's presidential plan. Is that true?
No. Look, I'm very proud to have served with Barack Obama. I think he was a great president. But the world has changed. The problems we're dealing with are significantly different. And the problems relate to everything from our social structure because of what Trump has done to pit whites against blacks, Hispanics, that all, like, for example, he talks about Latin America as if it's a plague. Yeah. And he talks about people that, we have to stop the invasion and all these terrible things he talks about. We have to restore the soul of America, number one. It's a different problem we had when we were president and vice president. Secondly, also the world has changed and relates to everything from global warming to what Trump has done to diminish healthcare access as well as educational access across the board. So it's a different set of problems. But the one thing which is the same is the integrity. If you notice, in our administration, there wasn't one single time in 8 years where the ethics of our administration, where the decency of our administration was ever questioned. That's the administration, that's the party administration I will be returning as president.
Mr. Biden, I know that you don't have time, but I have another question. How do you see the future of Mr. Trump's impeachment in the Congress of the United States?
Well, the Congress has their job is to move forward. Look, this is a man who has basically indicted himself by standing on the White House lawn and saying he asked three foreign governments to interfere in our elections in 2016 and now. And that is a constitutional violation in our country. And so the House is out there. The House of Representatives provides basically the indictment. They determine whether there's enough reason to go forward with a trial in the United States Senate. They're in the process of doing that. It's now being publicly debated. The American public is divided on whether it should go forward or not. But my job, that's their job. My job is to beat Donald Trump at the polls. Donald Trump embraced dictators and authoritarian regimes throughout the world. Donald Trump has walked away from our friends internationally. He's abandoned people we gave our word to, like the Kurds. They lost 11,000 Kurds beating ISIS. And so my job is to deal with the problems he has created, to win this election and defeat him at the polls. The Congress and the Senate's job is to go out and decide whether or not there's sufficient evidence to say you have committed a high crime and misdemeanor, and therefore we are going to see to it that you can no longer be president. That's far, far off, and not in terms of years, but in terms of months, and that is something that we're going to have to watch develop.
And we wish you the best. This is the last question. You don't think that the war on drugs is lost?
Oh, I think the war on drugs, the way it's being waged, is lost. I think what we should be doing in the United States, for example, and they recently did it in one state, I don't think anybody who has a drug problem, who is a user, should be going to jail. What they should be doing is going into mandatory rehabilitation. We should be building more rehabilitation facilities in America than prisons. And the way we should be dealing with drugs is to deal with it in a way that we go after the cartels, we go after the folks who in fact are spewing it. So the war has to, look, you know better than anyone. I've been to Colombia many times, and Colombia has incredible people. And the idea that this is now, the cartels are now being run by apparently people who were supposed to be making a deal with the government is a real serious problem. And I hope I can come back on and maybe talk in more detail about that. What I think is important that we do is one of the things I did when I was the vice president. I put together $750 million to provide for helping deal, like we did in Plan Colombia, help deal with the corruption that existed at the time in the government and in the police forces. It starts off by cleaning up what is in the countries that are in question, cleaning up their corruption, so that you have people who are working against the cartels, not cooperating with them. We also should be doing, like in this proposal, is related to the Northern Triangle, to Guatemala, Honduras, etc. That is to provide for means by which people decide there is no reason they have to leave. They can be safe by vetting the police forces, by making sure there's education, by making sure that the businesses pay their taxes so that everybody gets treated fairly, etc. There's a lot we can do that is not being done now by this administration. It's a mistake, a gigantic mistake.
Vice President, good luck. The best for you and for your country. And please do not forget Colombia.
I do not forget Colombia. As you may recall, one of the greatest honors I've gotten is I received the highest award the Colombian government gives to someone who is not a Colombian. I'm very proud of it. It's on display in my office, and I'll never forget the courage it took for the Colombian people to, I started going down there. You remember when it was a real problem. Remember when the Supreme Court people walked in, drug cartel walked in and actually assassinated people on the bench? Well, things changed, and they got to change again.
Have a good morning, and thank you very much for your time.
I hope you'll ask me to have me back. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Acaban de escuchar ustedes al anterior vicepresidente de los Estados Unidos, Joe Biden, quien según todas las encuestas pues será el candidato de su partido y según todas las encuestas le podría ganar la elección al hoy presidente Donald Trump. Obviamente pues le ofrezco una disculpa a los oyentes, pero no podíamos desperdiciar tiempo en las traducciones y, primero que todo, reconocer a nuestro equipo de producción en Estados Unidos haber logrado esta exclusiva en un día como hoy. Es que, Félix, lo que le pasó ayer al Partido Demócrata fue realmente importante. Muy importante.
El golpe de Kentucky fue impresionante, tanto así que un día antes Trump estuvo en Kentucky. Y en ese discurso en Kentucky él dijo: tenemos que ganar, porque si no ganamos se vería muy mal. Dijo Donald Trump, no me hagan eso, porque si perdemos se vería muy mal. Pues sí, se está viendo muy mal. Eso sí lo anticipó el presidente Trump.
Y tener a Joe Biden al otro día, claro, de eso me parece muy importante.
Hay que quitarse el sombrero con la producción. Buena prueba. Muy buena prueba.
Entre otras cosas, porque él no da muchas entrevistas individuales.
No da entrevistas.
Sí, no es muy dado a las entrevistas individuales y tampoco radiales.
Pero él, como se notó en la entrevista, tiene un especial afecto por Colombia.
Ah, y eso tiene una explicación. Luis Alberto Moreno es muy cercano a él.
Y creo que hay otra explicación, Alberto. Santiago Pastrana fue becario en su oficina. Y luego fue uno de sus staffers.
Ah, con razón.
Germán Vargas también es buen amigo de él.
Germán Vargas, pero es que Santiago Pastrana, después de haber estudiado, creo que su primer puesto fue una pasantía y luego ascendió dentro de esa oficina como staffer de Joe Biden. Así es de que algo, bueno, pero esto no puede desconocer el tremendo esfuerzo de producción.
De la producción. Pero no, estábamos hablando era su cercanía con Colombia y esas personas que hemos mencionado son las que lo han acercado.
Y que conste que él llamó, ¿no, Alberto?
Sí. Es que nosotros no queríamos. Hay que felicitar a la redacción de Miami, pero y a la redacción internacional, pero es que me estaba escribiendo alguien, oiga, ¿Biden llamó como oyente?
No.
Llamó por
Julio, no me cuelgue. Julio, no me cuelgue. No le faltó, sino Julio, no me cuelgue.
Que se cruzaron.
Sí, pero sí, un tipo como todo apenado, oígame, qué vaina, pero es que yo estoy tarazado, tengo aquí un poco de cosas, estoy apenadísimo, pero ok, let's go.
Julio.
Y Mr. Biden, ¿qué dijo? Uy, María, en resumen ejecutivo, porque siempre le alcanzamos a preguntar de todo.
Sí, pero vamos a hacerlo por temas y así...
Para la página se puede pasar con traducción.
Sí, para la página lo podemos pasar con traducción, Félix.
Ah, perfecto.
Pero,
queda muy agradecida María conmigo.
Adorándolo.
Sí,
pero
muchas gracias.
yo le digo, yo me acojo a la normativa una hora antes, ¿no? Y
¿Qué dijo
Hoy sí,
Biden que
oiga,
marcó el 305-285-0069?
Sí, pero marcó ese
Pues
número, Yami.
esa es la verdad, marcó ese número.
Sí.
Marcó el de los oyentes.
Bueno, vamos a hacerlo por temas, porque sí tocamos muchos temas con Joe Biden. Uno, el tema de campaña como tal. Julio, usted le preguntaba específicamente por los latinos, un voto muy importante. ¿Qué va a cambiar si el presidente dice va a cambiar? Todo, porque lo que ha hecho Trump, dice, pues ha sido un verdadero desastre, y él va a continuar en la línea que llevaba cuando era vicepresidente, porque reconoce la importancia del voto latino en Estados Unidos y dice, por ejemplo, en términos de educación, de cada 100 estudiantes, 24 son latinos, y eso hay que reconocerlo, y en esa medida apunta a los dreamers, a los soñadores, a los jóvenes, a quienes va a dar protección, y también a los venezolanos que piden un estatus temporal. En cuanto a su agenda de campaña y lo que sería su agenda de gobierno, si es muy parecida o no a la de Barack Obama, dice que coinciden plenamente en la integridad, decencia y ética con la que llevaron a cabo su administración, Obama, presidente, el vicepresidente, y que por supuesto algunas cosas continuarán, sobre todo en lo que tiene que ver con la estructura social. Sin embargo, él tendría que enfrentar como presidente problemas distintos que muchos de ellos, dice, los creó el mismo Donald Trump. Hablamos también de Colombia, lo que ha pasado en Colombia con el tema del incremento de los cultivos de coca, asesinato de líderes sociales, los líderes de las FARC que retornaron a las armas, y dice que no ha fracasado el proceso de paz, pero que en lo que tiene que ver con el tema de narcotráfico, pues Estados Unidos debe reanudar su compromiso con nuestro país, un compromiso que dice ha dejado de lado la administración Trump en lo que tiene que ver con luchar contra el narcotráfico. Y dice que la guerra contra las drogas tal cual y como la conocemos, esto se lo preguntaba usted, de alguna manera sí se ha perdido, que el enfoque debe ser otro. Por un lado, el enfoque debe ser consumidores tienen un problema y tienen que ir a centros de rehabilitación obligatorios. Y a la cárcel pues van los carteles y quienes producen y distribuyen la droga. Y en ese sentido dice que hay que reforzar a las policías y a las fuerzas de seguridad que combaten el narcotráfico. Esto en Colombia, donde él recuerda los esfuerzos que Estados Unidos ha hecho en tiempos del Plan Colombia, y también en el Triángulo Norte, en Centroamérica, donde dice que también hay que hacer un esfuerzo importante. Habló también del impeachment, de este juicio político que enfrenta el presidente Trump justamente por esta polémica con Ucrania que lo tiene a él en el centro junto a su hijo Hunter Biden, y dice que el Congreso, la Cámara y el Senado están haciendo su trabajo, que es de investigarlo, y determinarán si hay pruebas o no para que se concrete ese juicio político. Él hará el suyo, que es derrotar a Trump en las urnas y luego llegar a la Casa Blanca a resolver todos los problemas que dice Donald Trump ha creado, entre ellos los de política exterior. Ha abandonado a los aliados, pone como ejemplo a los kurdos, a quienes se abandonó en la guerra en Siria, y dice que a eso tendrá que volver él a la Casa Blanca, a resolver todos esos problemas.
No, pero impresionante.
No, creo que esa sirve para la página, no hay necesidad.
Gracias, Alberto.
No, ahora la completa en la página.
Gracias, Alberto.
Sí, ahora la completa, porque al comienzo también habló de que estaba muy contento por la jornada de ayer.
Sí, por supuesto.
Muy bien. Hemos estado tratando de contactar al abogado Diego Cadena para tratar de saber qué pasó ayer en su diligencia. No tuvimos suerte. El abogado Cadena nos manda a decir que no puede hablar, mientras que la Fiscalía esté valorando las respuestas que dio. De otra parte, lo que sí supimos fue qué le preguntaron, o algo de lo que le preguntaron. El fiscal encargado es uno de los fiscales más poderosos, eficientes que tiene Colombia, Daniel Hernández. Pues obviamente, tanto el senador Uribe como sus abogados, como el abogado Cadena, han sostenido que Monsalve, ese testigo que ha sido permanente foco del caso de manipulación y por lo cual está en proceso la investigación al senador Uribe, el fiscal lo que le pide a la defensa, especialmente a Cadena, es que demuestre lo que ellos están sosteniendo, y es que Monsalve los buscó a ellos y no ellos a Monsalve. ¿De qué manera pueden demostrar que es Monsalve el que los busca a ellos y no ellos, entiéndase, el senador Uribe y su representante Diego Cadena? También le pide, le pregunta que demuestre que la plata famosa de la que aquí hablamos no tenía como objeto cambiar el testimonio. ¿Cómo puede probar que esos subsidios, que esas ayudas no eran para cambiar el testimonio? También, ¿cuál es la razón de darle viáticos a los testigos? ¿Por qué? La otra pregunta que le hizo el fiscal Hernández es, ¿por qué le escribió la carta a otro testigo, a Vélez? ¿Por qué razón él termina escribiéndole la carta a Vélez? En la entrevista aquí, él dijo que era que Vélez no tenía facilidad para escribir. El fiscal quiere saber cómo puede probar Cadena que lo que dijo Vélez fue lo que él escribió en la carta, si Vélez tenía problemas para leer y para escribir. ¿Cómo puede probar que cuando él escribe de su puño y letra la carta de Vélez, él no cambió el contenido? Pregunté a una fuente en la fiscalía si le habían indagado algo sobre el origen de su patrimonio, de sus propiedades, de su vida privada, y me informan que no estaba en el cuestionario ese tema. No estuvo en el cuestionario el tema de el origen de sus recursos privados. ¿Qué sigue? La valoración por parte de la Fiscalía para determinar qué hacer. También me hacen una aclaración, y es que la diligencia de ayer me la hacen en la Fiscalía, la iban a hacer de todas maneras, pero la anticipan a pedido del propio Cadena. ¿Qué respondió Cadena? Pues no tenemos ni idea. Habrá que esperar y, por supuesto, considerar la evaluación que haga el fiscal Hernández del caso. Esta es la noticia del caso del senador Uribe, que ayer tuvo este desarrollo con su abogado en la Fiscalía General de la Nación. Algunas de las preguntas fue una diligencia de unas 3 horas y media más o menos.
Acompáñenos en el canal de YouTube @Julio Sánchez Cristo Oficial.